Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play Team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again in another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I am your keeper, Michael, and we rejoin our ongoing adventure of horror on the Orient Express. I have gathered our investigative crew with us this evening, and we'll start with introductions. So, to my right.
Hello, I'm Mike, and I'm playing James Fraser.
Very good. And to his right.
Hi, I'm Rena, and I'm playing Lady Elizabeth Fitzroy.
And at the end of the table.
Hi, I'm Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith.
To Mr. Griffith's right.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I'm playing Maggie Bellinger.
And last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Richard Courtenay.
And we're going to start with Professor Courtenay, as it were, and his able-bodied and always vigilant protective service, which is Simon, as they're arriving at the home of one Maggie Bellinger. They've collected some books, and they are going to do some research along with her, because it's fairly clear that she's not interested in going to the library. And it's also seemingly fairly clear that wherever Richard has laid his head or done work, little bits of skin are beginning to pop up with messages on them. So it's likely safer at the residence of Maggie's Aunt Edith. So we'll place you gentlemen there just approaching the house. We'll say that time-wise, it is just into the early afternoon at this point.
Right, so Richard will approach the door and knock sharply.
It's probably a few moments for a older chap in, say, uniform of clearly denotes him as a member of service, answers the door. He looks you and your compatriot there up and down a bit and says, "May I help you, sir?"
Yes, good afternoon. We're here to see Miss Bellinger.
Oh, may I tell her who's calling?
Professor Courtenay and Mr. Griffith.
Maggie, you're just inside the doorway area nearby, at a nearby table, and you can hear the rather noticeable tones of Richard's voice outside the door.
Oh, yeah. As soon as Maggie would have heard Richard, she would have started heading towards the door.
You see that David is trying to do his duty.
Yes, of course. Oh, hello, Richard. Oh, David, it's quite all right. I invited Mr. Courtenay over.
All right, he steps out of the way. Please, come right in, gentlemen.
Okay.
Can I take your coat and your hats?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. He takes your items and then kind of extends his hands towards the parlor and then basically waits to be bowled over by young Miss Bellinger.
Yes, of course. And I'm assuming the parlor is separate from the room that's filled with Parisians?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a big enough house to have it totally separate. Remember, the Parisians and your aunt mostly sit on the patio or veranda, as it were, to enjoy the cool air as they relax.
Yeah. Right. Why don't we go sit in here, Richard, and we can look over whatever you've brought. Was your search fruitful?
I have some ideas, and we have some things to look over, but not entirely. No.
Oh, well, I'm quite sorry that I didn't feel well enough to stay there.
Well, I certainly don't blame you. We took a trip to my office, and I'm afraid it appears that the person you found in the library may have been one of my students.
One of your students? Well, that can't be a coincidence. But I'm not sure who knows that me and you know each other.
No, I mean, one wonders, what were they thinking?
Well, perhaps the message that Mr. Griffith had spoke about at the library was intended for you and not me. I know you are a frequenter of the library.
Oh. Oh, yes, but, I mean, there are hundreds of people in the library every day. I hope it wasn't directed at me, but I suppose it could have been.
You can confirm that it was your student?
I believe it probably is. We went to my office and that of Professor Smith to look for any signs of interference. It was the idea of Simon here, and although Professor Smith's office seemed absolutely fine, mine had been rifled and papers thrown everywhere, complete disorder except for a note placed on the centre of my desk, which contained some comment about my student Simon Wentworth having suffered. I thought we put two and two together and assumed that it may have been him.
Oh, well, perhaps it'll be a good thing for us to get out of town soon then.
Well, a part of me thinks so, but trouble does seem to follow us wherever we go.
That doesn't seem to be the case lately. Well, what is it that you brought for us to look through?
Well, Richard perks up a little bit. He's still shaken by a lot of what's just happened. Yes, well, I've tried to find some interesting books on locations and museums, collections and that sort of thing, collectors, in these different places in the note that Beddoes has given us. But I get the impression that we may be better off looking in the countries that these pieces of this artifact may actually be in. Yes, if that makes sense. Although I do have some volumes. There's a book on museums here in Sofia, in Bulgaria. And yes, we have some information here about libraries in Paris. And Richard just prattles on for a bit about various books that he's picked up that might have some ideas in.
Here, why don't we sit here together and we can look at them?
Yes, so almost like planning a holiday.
While they're planning a holiday, Mr. Griffith, are you going to maybe perhaps avail yourself of the telephone here?
Ma'am, would you mind if I use the phone in your residence here?
Of course, and I imagine like Maggie and Richard are sitting down like together next to each other, and she's just kind of waving off Simon like, yes, it's in the other room.
You hear some heels on the floor, Simon, as you get ready to turn towards the... You see an older woman come in. She's dressed in a nice outfit. She seems to be maybe a bit more American than some of the British styles that you'd seen here, at least by first glance. She has black but yet graying hair. Moves at a fairly good clip for a woman probably in her mid-50s, 60s. Oh, I wasn't aware we had guests. You hear Aunt Edith's voice perk up.
Oh, yes, Aunt Edith. My apologies. Yes, I invited Mr. Griffith and Mr. Courtenay here over. We're going to look through some books about our upcoming trip.
Oh, is that Professor Courtenay? She steps completely around you, Simon.
That's fine.
So Richard will get up and do the polite thing. Pleasure to see you again.
Yes, indeed. Margaret here tells me that you're planning a bit of a trip.
Yes, we have some... you obviously remember Professor Smith. Yes, various places to go, like a bit of a research trip that Professor Smith wants us to attend to.
Is he doing all right?
Oh, I'm afraid he was rather poorly the last time we saw him. Beddoes was taking care of him, was going to move him to the country. I think perhaps I should telephone him if before we leave.
We'd be happy to have you use the telephone here. It's at your disposal.
I wouldn't want to impose.
No, not at all. Not at all. At any point, should you need the phone, feel free to use it.
Oh, thank you. Would you like me to pass on a message?
If you speak with him, yes, tell him that, tell him we hope he gets us quickly recovered.
Yes, no, I will certainly do that. Thank you.
Now, should I have David bring in some tea, or perhaps maybe something to eat? Are any of you hungry?
Yes, that would be quite nice, Aunt Edith.
Wonderful. David? She kind of walks off a bit back into the other area. She, again, steps around you, Simon.
Maggie laughs at that as well.
One thing Maggie probably would have noted there was that Aunt Edith used her proper name, Margaret, in front of Richard.
Yep.
It felt very strange, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Luckily, I've already clarified with Richard that he can just call me Maggie. Richard is probably feeling quite awkward at this point, not knowing really how to refer to her, whether it should be Margaret or Maggie. So he's going to...
You're actually quite flush. Like you feel like the face, you feel your skin on your face is on fire.
He's going to file that sense of unease away and remember it occasionally.
All right. So, Mr. Griffith, you find the telephone. It is a relatively easy device to use, one you've utilized on many occasions. So, where are you ringing first?
I'm going to be ringing Scotland Yard, and I'm going to request the inspector who was I was informed of by the major.
So the inspector you want to speak with is Inspector Barrington. You would still hear his voice ring in your head. Before we totally leave Maggie and Richard, though, if the two of you are going to do a little bit more research, you can go ahead and make me library use rolls if you'd like.
Of course.
And then we'll get back to that in a second. So, Simon, you ring up Inspector Barrington. A pleasant lady answers the phone, and you hear a voice say, "Who may I say is calling?"
Ma'am, my name is Simon Griffith. I'm an associate of the Major Pierce. And I was directed to speak to Inspector Barrington if he has a few moments.
Yes, one moment. I'll see if he's available. You get put on hold just temporarily. Then there's a hum a bit, and then there's a series of clicks. There's two of them, and then a third. And you hear kind of a strong, older man's voice take the line. "This is Barrington."
Inspector, my name is Simon Griffith. I'm an associate of Dr. Pierce.
Oh, Pierce. Yes. Yes, he rang me, said you might be calling.
Yes, I was the one who informed Dr. Pierce of the body that was discovered at the one residence.
Yes, shocking, eh?
Do you have an identity on that body confirmed?
Well, not as of yet. No one has come to claim what's been left, sadly. But from the identification that we have on the body, I can tell you that it was a student at the local university here.
Appears to be a Williams, correct?
My information is fairly good, yes.
Yes, I'm currently in communication with his professor, obviously the resident. Is the house currently closed down?
It is for the moment. We were looking to speak with the professor. Is he going to make himself available, or should I have someone from the yard come and look him up?
This is a situation. Let me be frank. The professor will be leaving town shortly. I do wish him to speak with you. He also wishes to go through his house and collect a few things. I believe we can take care of all this at once.
Yes, I suppose if he would be good enough to meet me there, I could have some very pointed questions for him. Now, is there anything else?
I have one other question because it was noted by one of our associates that there was a body that was discovered at the at the library yesterday. It didn't make it into the papers.
You hear a series of shuffling papers across the phone. I don't have anything here for a library. You're sure?
Yes, it was a skinned body discovered in the British Library.
Skinned?
Yes.
I don't have anything here on a skinned body. I don't have anything on a body found in the library.
This is an issue, then.
It doesn't mean that it simply hasn't made it to my desk.
I believe they may be linked.
How so?
The people who are after the professor, I believe, left this body as a warning for him at the library because the professor frequents that library.
You think these two are connected and it's targeting him?
Correct. This would be one of the reasons why we are removing the professor from London as soon as possible. It is not to avoid any, of course, investigation, but it's for his own health.
You do understand, Mr. Griffith, that is exactly what someone might say if they had committed 2 murders.
I will be accompanying him.
Well, Major Pierce and I go back to the war. I trust him to assess character, and he's told me that you're on the right side of this, so I'm willing to take that on account, but I need to know your movements. I need to know where you're going to be. If there's... I simply can't have him skip town and then need to question him again.
Investigator. I will keep you in the loop. I will not tell you all our movements, because some may be circumspect, of course, you understand our business. But I will keep you in the loop on where we are planning on being at some point. And we may also need to ask you for some help further down. We have some investigating we are going to be doing.
Is it in association with the source of these murders?
Yes.
Well, I would be willing to agree to the terms, provided that the professor will make himself available to us today at some point, or tomorrow at his residence outside. We can agree upon a time, but it must be within the next 24 hours.
I believe tomorrow in the late morning would be best, sir. For the simple reason it's already going on evening here now.
Well, let me be clear then. The professor is not to leave London until we've spoken.
Of course. What time would be best for you, sir?
10 a.m.
At his place of residence? Across the street?
Across the street. It'll just be me. I'll be waiting on him.
Of course, sir. All right, so we will set that up. We have a concern over... How do I phrase this, sir? The body in the library, if you could find out or have it identified, that would be incredibly useful. We have some ideas, but we need confirmation.
Well, I need to report that there has been a body. You say it was skinned.
It was skinned. It reported to the librarians. They called the constables. So I'm afraid it should already be there somewhere. You should have paperwork somewhere in your branch, shouldn't you?
Well, there is more than one inspector than just me. So perhaps it's hit someone else's desk, but I will find out what I can before our meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Of course, sir.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out and contacting me, Mr. Griffith. I will look forward to speaking with Professor.
Thank you, sir.
He hangs up.
And now I call the major.
So after a little bit of time on the phone, you get connected up with Major Pierce.
Major.
Griffith, mind yourself. You should be calling me Doctor nowadays.
Of course, sir.
So what did you need?
I just got a hold of Inspector Barrington. Thank you for taking care of that earlier. We are going to be speaking with him tomorrow. We will also be leaving the country soon. I have spoken to the inspector on the grounds that he understands that we will be doing this, so he'll be asking some questions of one of the individuals I am currently looking.
Well, it's probably for the best. You don't want to start off on this journey with a nagging, biting at your heels from Scotland Yard. They have a long reach, mind you.
Which is precisely why I'm hoping to work with them and use them, and if possible yourself, to possibly introduce ourselves to other people and departments on our way.
It's possible. I have quite a few contacts around Europe, but it's important that you understand that there is a difference between what we would call hard strength and soft strength. Most of my communication dealings, my assistance is going to be used in soft strength, a word spoken, a letter sent, rather than you marching in somewhere and dropping my name everywhere.
Which is precisely why I'm asking you now.
Well, I do appreciate that. I saw your requisition request.
Yes, sir.
You do realize that the Orient Express might turn up their eyes a bit, not to mention that it's possible that if your luggage is inspected, some of the customs agents might not look so kindly on some of those items.
The rifles, sir?
No, Simon, not the rifles. You know what I'm speaking of.
That's why I requested that be secreted, sir.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do some of it, but you must understand, we must come to an understanding that while I could supply it and can supply it, you are taking a risk by having it secreted away. If it is found, there will be no way I can assist you in getting out of such calamities.
How about we reduce the amount then?
Yeah, that seems fair. I'll find some way to get some of it to you. It's useful if it becomes necessary, but obviously it's quite volatile.
I understand completely, sir. If you wish not to send it to me, can you have it waiting at certain stops?
Maybe a little easier, yes?
Would that be a soft strength as you were discussing?
It's much more possible for me to perhaps get something set up in France or even in Italy packed into the furloin rather than leave London with it. Although, we can probably speak a bit later on it, but you want to prepare yourself for going into Italy. Things have changed after the war.
This would be one of the reasons why you initially assigned me to this. For that Mussolini fellow, correct?
That's right. It's critical, as I mentioned before, he not be able to get his hands on what the professor has.
That's not a problem, sir. It appears also there may be a need or a stop in either Greece or Sofia.
Well, both places could be potentially problematic.
All right, sir. I will be keeping you in the loop carefully, and we will do what we can.
Very well, then. Just advise me before you... are you planning on leaving this week, is it? Yes?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I'll draw up something, and maybe we can have something waiting for you in Paris then.
Excellent, sir.
All right, so we'll go back to Richard and Maggie there, sitting nearby, reading over books as David's brought in the tea and perhaps small cheese sandwiches or hors d'oeuvres or whatnot. I don't know.
Yes, and you want us to make a library use roll?
I do.
Okay.
Both of us or just one of us?
I guess that beggars the question, Richard. Are you going to make her do all the reading, or are you going to read along with her?
Oh, I think Richard will be reading along there.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I can read out loud if you'd like when I find an interesting part.
So I think Richard is nervous. He rolled a 92.
And Maggie rolled a 27 against 50.
We'll get to you in just a second then, Maggie. It's not that you're particularly having a hard time finding things. It's that every time Maggie's hand goes left to move a page from right to left, her hand gets closer and closer to you physically, and it's a little distracting maybe. But for your part, Miss Bellinger, you find a wealth of information on Paris and the museums there. But what you zero in on with your successful library use roll is that whomever this count was, or whomever this noble person was, that is supposedly connected to one of these pieces that Dr. Smith is looking for. You're thinking that you might want to look into some burial records while you're there in the library. It's also likely that you're going to want to focus in on the French Revolution while you're there as well. So you have some topics specifically to look for. Maybe even some land use records. Maybe there's some, if he was some sort of noble, maybe he ordered a property.
Yes, and kind of as we're going, I will be pointing out, oh, Richard, look at this interesting piece of information here. It might be useful if we were to check out some further records while we're at the library. Or perhaps you could go, check them out for us.
Oh, I see. I think it might be better to check these out in France. I'm not sure the burial records for the French would be in London, but Yes, no, it's certainly a fantastic idea. I hadn't really thought of that.
Yes, of course. Sorry, my mind sometimes drifts elsewhere, but it is quite exciting doing this research with you.
Yes, research can be a lot of fun. Richard's going to try and do the gallant thing and grab a plate of sandwiches and a sandwich,
Oh, yes, of course.
cheese, I believe.
Oh, yes. I do enjoy these.
Cheese. Did I say I was born in cheddar? The cheese.
I don't think that you did.
Haha. Yes, no, that's where my family come from. Yes, my parents had a little farm there, and I was brought up, and yes, it was a nice farm.
Yes, it seems like academia is more your area than cheese.
Yes, I'm far more comfortable around books.
Aunt Edith steps back in just for a moment, and she, I see David's got you all tucked away and set then, yes?
Oh, yes. Richard was just telling me about how his family's from Cheddar.
Oh, well, wonderful. Then I can't imagine these cheese sandwiches are any good then, huh? You probably had far better.
Oh no, they're splendid, absolutely wonderful.
Tell me, Richard, I don't know much about you. She kind of strides over and sits down close by. You pick up Richard, you pick up a bit of a scent on her. It's a little strange. It almost kind of reminds you of maybe being in church as a kid. There's an aromatic. It's not bad. Maybe a bit flowery.
Would Richard know what that is? Would he recognise it?
Absolutely not.
Well, Richard starts. I don't know if Margaret was had explained. I'm a professor at the university. A professor in mathematics.
Well, I'm sure that's wonderful. How did you come to such a position?
Oh, you know, of course, Professor Julius Smith. He has relatives near my parents' farm in Cheddar, and we met at a market one day, and we sort of, the families at least, kept in touch ever since. And Julius was kind enough to sort of see me through school, and yes, he's been a fantastic mentor.
Simply but a man, but a lion of heart. That is Smith, as I knew him. You're going along on this trip with Margaret, then?
Well, yes, indeed. It was Professor Smith's idea that we should continue his research whilst he's convalescing.
And I think that Professor Courtenay would be quite a fitting escort on this journey.
She nods in agreement. Yes. No, he seems quite well knowledgeable, and perhaps even you could find a way to help Margaret here see Paris more. Be wonderful for the two of you.
Yes, I mean, my mother always wanted me to travel. It's busy at the university, you know.
Indeed. Simon, you return to the front parlor room where they're having this chat. Oh, Aunt Edith stands up. I'm sorry. I didn't introduce myself earlier, and she turns to you, Maggie. This is another of your friends?
Yes, this is Mr. Simon Griffith.
She extends her hand very carefully.
He'll be coming with us as well on our travels.
Evening, ma'am. I take her hand carefully.
So you're along for the journey as well, then?
I am the professor's keeper.
Well, she kind of, after you're done with her hand, she kind of takes it back and covers her other hand with it. Like, his keeper. His Professor, you need keeping. She kind of smiles.
It's an interesting turn of phrase. Yes, Mr. Griffith here is sort of assisting with some of the more practical aspects, some of the more physical aspects of our journey.
Which aspects of that journey would it be? What?
Richard's looking a bit flustered and stuck for words here. you're never quite sure. With the research, there may be an element of archaeology.
Ma'am, I'll be carrying his books.
Oh my, she chuckles, carrying his books. So you're a walking library then?
That would be one way of saying it, ma'am.
What part of Appalachia are you from?
Appalachia, ma'am. I'm from West Virginia.
Ah, I see. Yes, well, our family's back from the States as well.
Miss Maggie said so.
Please have something to eat. Perhaps I don't know if you drink tea, but I can make you coffee if you'd like.
Coffee would be wonderful, ma'am.
The coffee is quite nice here.
I can keep an eye on your daughter, too, while we're on the trip.
Oh, she gives a very short laugh. I think perhaps you'll find, Mr. Griffith, that Maggie can take care of herself quite well.
I'm sure she can, ma'am. I can see that. But she still might want someone to carry a bag or two when she's busy talking with folks.
Of course. The coffee straight away then. She turns and walks out of the room.
Miss Maggie?
Yes, Simon.
Y'all are going to be the death of me.
Well, that may be true.
All right, so we're going to move camera and we're going to go to same day, just that late afternoon at Kensington. Lady Elizabeth and Miss Fraser have returned from their trip. They've had a few hours to themselves and to kind of reflect and to relax. I'm sure that the trip back has been quite something for the both of them. And so we'll pick it up there at Kensington with Mr. Fraser attending Lady Elizabeth.
Fraser,
Yes, your ladyship.
close the door for a moment, please.
Yes, of course, your ladyship. How can I help you, your ladyship?
And she looks a little bit uncertain of herself, which is very rare for her. Fraser, I had a somewhat disturbing conversation with his lordship while we were down at Maplebrook.
I'm sorry to hear that. Is there anything that I can do to help?
Yes, that's why I want to discuss this with you. You served my father shortly before you worked for Raymond, and then before you worked for me.
Indeed, I did, your ladyship, and a great honour it was, too.
You are aware of the Earl's indiscretions?
It's really not my place to say, your ladyship.
Well, yes, it rather is right now, Fraser. It has some bearing on what I would like to discuss with you, so no need to be reticent with me right now.
Well, your ladyship, there are certain things that it's not right and proper for a gentleman's gentleman to speak of. But if you were to press me, then I would have to say that I was aware that his lordship had his little peccadillos.
Yes, well, it appears that one of his little indiscretions may have had a rather embarrassing result for the rest of the family.
Yes, I think I follow your train of thought, your ladyship. Yes.
Yes, so Raymond has informed me that a young man, calling himself Alexander, has presented himself as my father's son. And while there is no chance, of course, of him laying claim to the title or our lands or anything of that sort, as if he is father's son, he's a bastard, it could cause considerable embarrassment for my family, particularly my mother, and, of course, his lordship.
Yes, quite so. Quite so, your ladyship. I dare say if the man were to go to the courts or to the press, yes, I can see how it would be a rather unpleasant situation for the family.
Well, the thing is, he's already gone to the courts, apparently. And
Really?
we have no information on this young man. We don't know anything about him. Raymond couldn't even find him. So we don't know which of father's women he is descended from. But I rather suspect, and I'm going to pull that picture out of my bag and show it to Fraser. I rather suspect it might be this woman. It's the only lead I have at the moment.
Oh, I don't think I've ever seen this lady before.
Yes, I think she might have been before your time. I have...
Judging from her age in the picture, at any rate, I dare say she would have been. So you know nothing about this young man other than his first name?
I can only give you what Raymond gave, and that's not very much, and this picture, but I have some very strange memories, Fraser, of seeing this woman with father when I was a small child, so I rather think, since Alexander's claiming to be an older child, that it's very likely that she has something to do with it. And I was wondering if you have any connections, if you could speak to William, as I understand you know where he is, if you could speak to him about who this person may be, or any other leads you can help me out here with, Fraser, because I must admit I am at a loss.
Yes, I believe that William has managed to secure some employment, albeit in a somewhat lower position with I think it is the Carruthers family. They're across on the other side of town. I'll see if I can get in touch with him, and we'll see if we can hammer this out. I wonder though if this is could this be in any way connected with the burglary at Maplebrook, Your Ladyship?
Yes, I think so. I'm not quite sure how exactly, but the timing does seem to be far too much of a coincidence, and you know how I feel about coincidences.
Yes, and also the nature of the items taken. I think it does seem, as you say, to be rather more than a coincidence. But I still wonder about this a cologne. I think that Mr. Meadows said that there was a lingering smell in the room of a very heady perfume. That seems somewhat unusual for I don't know. So we know this chap's name is Alexander. We know that he has gone to the courts. There must be some record with the courts, though. Surely, if he has actually taken this as far as the courts, the court records would show the name and details of the claimant, surely, and his solicitor as well.
Oh, I can call Raymond and ask if he got that information, I suppose. He didn't seem to have very much. He was just notified that the court was accepting it. But I rather think, with your note about the cologne, Fraser, I'm gonna look back at the picture again. The woman does seem a bit foreign, wouldn't you say?
She does have a darker complexion, indeed, Your Ladyship. I couldn't rightly say exactly what nationality she might be, but yes, I wouldn't say she is of the British Isles. Certainly not born in the British Isles. No, not from the look of her.
Well, if she is and there's a massive wince, half-brother's mother, then it's entirely likely that he is of a similar persuasion. Could explain the cologne, as I rather believe it was either him or one of his agents who broke into the house.
Does seem rather likely, indeed, yes. He's looking for some sort of paperwork to substantiate his claim, though I really don't understand exactly what he's attempting to achieve here other than embarrassing the family.
I don't rightly know either, Fraser, but we've had these intersections with these Turkish gentlemen, I believe, and that's yet another coincidence that I don't quite like.
Surely you don't think the two are connected, do you?
Well, Fraser, we have this strange, foreign-looking woman, could be from that area, I suppose, and popping up around the same time as all of this strange adventure is going on. I don't like it. I don't like how they're happening all at the same time. Mind you, they could just be completely separate, but...
You don't think it possible that the lady in this picture here is connected in any way with the book that your father had possession of, that he passed down to you?
I am quite certain she is.
Well then, if that is the case, then perhaps these Turkish gentlemen, these Mehmet Makirat, however many of them there may be, perhaps there is a closer connection than we saw at first. Well, I will make some inquiries, Your Ladyship. I will speak to William. I will also see if I can get any information from the courts. If I can find out where and when these claims were made, and any details. If there is a solicitor involved, perhaps one might be able to find a way of communicating with him. I take it your brother's solicitor is dealing with the case from his perspective.
Yes, and I rather gather there's more pressure being put on from some higher levels, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I believe. Yes, I believe I'm with you, Your Ladyship. Indeed. Well, perhaps the pressure from those higher levels that you speak of can be brought to bear in a swift and sure fashion.
I just would like this taken care of as quickly and quietly as possible. I don't want my dear mother having to deal with any of the press or any of this sort of nonsense.
No, I take it your mother is not aware of the situation as yet.
No, she would be devastated.
Indeed, best kept that way than I think one wouldn't want to upset her unnecessarily. I'm sure this can all be dealt with. If the gentleman, well, not to put too fine a point on it, if the gentleman would accept a cash settlement or something of that nature in order to stop pursuing the matter further, and retreat back into the shadows, then that might be best for all concerned.
I have discussed this with his lordship, and that is what we would prefer. Mind you, Fraser, my mother is a very intelligent woman. She knew about father's little dalliances, but she was not aware he was so careless enough to leave the evidence behind. We cannot let this get back to her.
No, of course not, Your Ladyship. Absolutely not. You can be sure that I will remain, as I always try to be, the soul of discretion in this matter.
Yes, I know I can rely on you.
Well, I understand that, Your Ladyship, that we have visitors this afternoon for tea. Do you know who exactly will be joining us? And I can tell Cook how many places to set for.
Well, I invited the professor and his caretaker, whatever he calls himself, Mr. Griffith.
Mr. Griffith, yes.
An extra place just in case, Mr. Fraser, because I have a feeling that now that we're back in London, where the professor goes, the American goes.
Indeed, the ever-present Miss Bellinger. Yes. I have no doubt that her face will appear in the doorway if his does. Yes. Well, yes. I shall go and make things ready for them then. What time are you expecting them?
Around 4, I believe.
Very good, Your Ladyship. Well, as I say, leave it with me. I will do the very best I can, and I shall let you know as soon as I have any pertinent information for you.
Thank you, Fraser.
Wonderful. Okay, so we'll flash back to Hyde Park into the Bellinger residence, and I believe there are some other items we need to attend to.
Professor.
Yes?
I poke Richard noticeably in the shoulder to distract him from Maggie.
Oh, that's a spook.
You said you were going to phone Wentworth, correct?
Oh, yes, I had kind of thought... Yes, I can do.
Go ahead and do that, sir. We can always drop by later, but let's see if the gentleman is in.
Yes, I think I'd rather phone. Maggie, is it okay for me to use the telephone?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Was it in the hall? Richard's just looking awkward, he doesn't know where he's going.
Of course. Here, I can show you where it is, and I will show Richard the way.
Oh,
Thank you.
Go down a small hallway, and pop, there it is. A little section, a little table for you to use the phone, and there's a pad and like a nearby pencil with stationery to you to make notes if you need to. It's a whole setup.
Mm-hmm.
And Maggie will like slight brush on the shoulder with her hand and say, I'll just be reading while I wait for you.
Oh, I'll be back in a moment. Richard will withdraw his notebook, which he always carries with him, and that should have Simon Wentworth's number and address in it.
You're going to call Mr. Wentworth then?
Yes, indeed.
All right. It rings for quite a bit of time, and then eventually, probably 5 or so rings into it, you hear a voice pick up. Hello?
Yes, I wonder if you can help me. I'm looking for Stephen. It's Professor Courtenay from the university.
Oh, Professor, he's not here. He's been gone for some time. He should be at university with you. You hear him chuckle.
Yes, well, that was quite my thought. Unfortunately, I've not seen him for a few days.
Well, I know it's just the weekend, so perhaps he's in the dormitory there, just maybe having. Hopefully, he's doing his homework.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, we're rather busy this term with assignments, but I'm sure he'll reappear next week. Yes, no,
And no doubt, when he makes his face shown to you in class, you tell him I said hello.
I will do indeed. Thank you. So, Richard is also going to see if he can phone Professor Smith, or Beddoes anyway, just to see how the professor's doing before he leaves.
Okay, so your plan is to ring the shop in Cheapside and see if you can get in touch with him. Okay, you ring. It again goes for a few rings, and then you hear a lady's voice pick up the phone. Master's residence.
Hello there. I was trying to get hold of Beddoes and Julius Smith.
Oh, I don't know. We just taken up renting here just the other day, which we just moved in.
Oh, did the previous tenants leave a forwarding address or telephone number?
Not a scrap of paper.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry to have disturbed you.
Yes. Good day.
Yes. Good day to you.
Oh, welcome back, Richard.
I tried calling Stephen. His parents are a little concerned they haven't seen him, but he doesn't seem to be there. But more concerning, Professor Smith has moved. I called the place in Cheapside, and somebody's just moved in. He's no longer there. Yes, it's most unusual, most strange.
Oh, it's quite concerning.
Well, Beddoes did say that he'd keep everybody in touch, and
Perhaps, yes, he left for his own safety.
oh, I know they were planning on moving to somewhere in the country, but I had rather hoped to get in touch before we left again.
Well, hopefully he'll be reaching out to us.
Yes, maybe that's what he'll do. Maybe he's left a note at my house.
Speaking of your house, you and I have an appointment with someone tomorrow at 10.
Connection with my house?
Yes, sir.
What the devil's that all about?
You said you wanted to go back through it, sir, for some of your clothes, correct?
Well, yes. I mean, you suggested I could buy some more, but I would rather like to see the place and make sure it's all okay and in one piece still.
Yes, sir, and we'll take care of that tomorrow.
Oh, good. And then who is this? Who is this appointment?
It's with Scotland Yard.
Oh, well, I guess that's understandable.
Effectively, sir, if you are going to leave the country, they wish to make sure that you are not a person of interest.
A person? Me?
Do you not own the property that the body was found in?
A body was found somewhere. What? Are you talking? You're not talking about the library, are you? Richard, what is it that he's talking about?
Apparently there are bodies everywhere, Miss Maggie. This one was found in Professor's house.
I wasn't there.
Oh my goodness.
Mr. Griffith here found it. Yes, most disturbing. One of my students.
So one of your students was found at your house, and the gentleman that we found in the library was also one of your students?
And Julius as well. I fear they're after me and the people I know.
Don't sign up for any of the professor's classes, Miss Maggie.
Richard gives Simon a grim stare. He's not impressed.
So does Maggie. Well, this is no time for joking, Mr. Griffith. If Mr. Courtney's life is in danger.
Why do you think I'm here, Miss Maggie?
Well, I didn't know the whole story.
I am the professor's keeper. This would be why.
So I see why that would be necessary now.
I think we were all together probably when The first chap met his end, and the second time I was in Maplebrook with yes. They can't believe it was me. And you can be a witness, and you.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes. Richard's never been in trouble before. This is very foreign to him.
This needs to be done as things are done by the book.
Yes.
He's going to ask you some questions. Then we're going to go through your house. You are going to collect your few items, and we all will be ready to leave.
Yes.
Yes, a body was found in the professor's house, Miss Maggie. And yes, a body was found in the library. We know the body found in the professor's house was one of his students. The body in the library is not yet identified, but was probably Wentworth. And this is all a dangerous situation. Are you sure you still wish to come?
Of course I do.
All right, then.
I'm not one to shy away from danger.
It would be nice to have somebody there.
You may wish to prepare yourself for danger then, ma'am.
I see.
All right, then. So I suppose with what you've gotten a chance to research between the phone calls, you have some semblance of an idea of maybe where you'll go when you get to Paris. But before you get there, you have a meeting, the aforementioned meeting with the inspector, which is what we'll roll to. So I would imagine you two gentlemen at some point near the evening's end, see yourself out or are let out then by Aunt Edith and Maggie, and then we can pick up in the morning with the scene outside of Richard's house. So it's a Monday morning now. There's a stiff rain in the air for sure, and it's the type of rain that pelts, large drops, and so an umbrella for the two of you is definitely required. Then at about 10 a.m. or so, the two of you meet just across the street from your house, Richard. The two of you meet a tall, black shape in the form of an inspector from Scotland Yard. He is brass buttons and all. To you, Richard, he's probably slightly terrifying, having never been in any sort of legal incident before. And as the two of you approach him, he seems to take a very long look at you.
Simon, is this the gentleman we're meeting?
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Griffith.
Identification, sir.
He opens the jacket on his lapel, and you can see his Scotland Yard inspector badge. Probably the only thing that gleams here.
Do you have anything that confirms you are Barrington? Of course, I've never seen you, sir. That's why I'm asking.
Of course, I can appreciate your concern. He opens a small leather case, and you see an actual written inspector's badge and then his picture next to it.
Thank you, Inspector. I extend my hand to him.
He takes it. Professor Courtenay, is it?
Yes, Professor Richard Courtenay.
The inspector turns just slightly and looks at the house. Vauxhall's a wonderful area.
Yes, I mean, I come from a family of modest means. From the southwest, you understand. I'm not born into money.
He takes out a small pad of paper and his writing implement. So tell me, when was the last time you were inside the residence?
Call the exact date. I came back here with Mr. Griffith. We'd been to a dinner near the I don't remember the name of it. Richard's getting really flustered. And there were these a Turkish gentleman and who was yes and Mr. Griffith accompanied me back home, and it was a terrible sight. We found one of my students somewhat dead.
You did not find him?
No. Tell us, Mr. Griffith, who found the student.
What happened is that the professor was staying at a hotel. I came to investigate the house because of what had happened to Dr. Smith's house with the potential arson, which I believe you are aware of, correct, sir?
Yeah, I am aware of it, and it is arson.
And as Professor here, the Professor Courtenay, was, call it the mentee a student of Dr. Smith, he was the next target, so I thought I would investigate the house myself. That is where I found the body, and I contacted our associate, who in turn contacted you.
This Turkish gentleman, for that matter, what can you tell me about them?
Well, this was at a dinner. There was first a presentation by Dr. Smith. This was at the society. You would know this better than I do, Professor.
It was the Challenger lectures. If you remember, we went to see Julius Smith. He did a fantastic presentation on the supernatural and the spiritual, if you remember. And then we went for the dinner after.
Correct. I'm doing all this to calm Richard's nerves here, and I'm hoping it's working. Walking him carefully through it because he looks like he's about ready to lose it.
Yeah, you can tell from his expression, he looks like he's ready to jump out of his skin.
So this was the dinner. There was the issue with a Turkish gentleman there. I didn't clearly see him. I believe the professor here and another American saw him, as well as one of our other associates. I believe I had my back turned. And they tried pursuing him, and that is why the professor ended up being in a hotel that evening. Does this sound correct, Professor?
Well, yes, if you remember during the lecture, one of these Turkish gentlemen was looking at Julius and then was looking back to us, and it appeared to be the same gent that followed us to the dinner. He wasn't sat down eating; he was just sort of loitering, hanging around. Miss Bellinger did suggest that we should approach the man, ask him what he wanted. I mean, this, if you recall, nothing had happened then. It was somewhat suspicious and unusual, but nobody had been burned or murdered. Not at that point.
But now, Professor, people have been burned and murdered.
It's terrible, isn't it?
I've looked into this situation at the library, and I have some continuing questions for staff there at the library. Sorry to say that there's been no body retrieved from the library.
Inspector, how did you lose a body?
I lost nothing. It was never reported.
Then you definitely must have words with the people at the library and the constables who were there.
I plan to shortly after this. What I'm trying to ascertain, he turns back to you, Richard, is should I let you leave the country? Because it seems to me that it's not only potentially one murder that you're part of, or at least something with you, but now two.
I was a part of nothing. I was with during the dinner. I don't know when these things happen, but I was with people all the time.
And you can state for clarity and certainty at those times where you were and who you were with. Yes.
Well, since these terrible events have happened, I've been with others continually. Mr. Griffith here has been keeping an eye on me, giving me a hand over the last few days, and we've recently been on a train to a place near Oxford, Maplebrook. I don't obviously know when these murders were committed. I can't tell you for sure whether I was there or where I was at those times. Yes, it's just horrifying.
I can confirm that the professor was with me at Maplebrook at the time that the body was found in the library. I was also aware of him in the preceding 24 hours, so I sincerely doubt he was in any way affiliated with the body at the library. Additionally, although I cannot confirm that the body in his residence was not the work of the professor, I will vouch for him in this instance.
He leans forward just a slight bit and again assesses you a bit, Richard. Well, I don't believe you're a man of murder. Not just yet. And if what you said is true about the situation at the library, you don't seem to be someone who's likely to commit the crime twice. Now, from what I know of Mr. Griffith's standings, He is a man to be trusted. I don't believe he would cover for a double murderer either. So, I cannot let you back into the house. It's a crime scene. Not even to claim some of your items.
Yes, I quite understand.
And he turns back to you, Simon. We've spoken about my guidelines, yes?
We have some?
I expect you to hold to them fast, you understand?
I understand. And as I told you, I will not report all, but I will let you know where we are.
Well, I'm sure if I have to reach out and contact you, I'll be able to get a hold of you.
Of course, sir. Also, one thing to point out. If you have a skinned gentleman, the professor here is a professor of mathematics, not biology. This is an important thing to think of.
No, quite frankly, the professor here looks like he's made for the classroom.
And not a vivisectionist.
Make sure you keep your nose clean, Mr. Court.
Of course.
And we will be allowed to leave the country, correct, sir? As long as we abide by what we discussed.
Provided I don't have any further discoveries before you leave, yes.
I hope not. If so, there would be news to me as well.
Quite had enough of the events of late. Another discovery would not be welcome.
Very well. Then off you go then.
Yes, good day. Good day to you, sir.
Professor,
Yes.
let's go get you a drink.
A drink of tea, because, well, it's 10 in the morning, and if I'm not sure Richard's stomach is up for perhaps a whiskey at 10 a.m. in the morning. Maybe not, though. Who knows?
And then we need to go get you some clothes.
Yes. So, yeah, Richard's shaken. He's got some questions he should probably ask, but his mind isn't there at the minute. His mind is everywhere else.
Richard, give me an idea roll.
23, which is that's a hard success.
So you have been stumbling around mentally for a moment after the inspector's rather direct questioning, and you suddenly come upon a very concerning thought. If they are targeting you and they've hit your office, clearly, and they have hit your friend and mentor, and they've hit your house, where else have you been? And where else might they go?
That's a very good point. So Richard is going to, probably try a public phone box and give Maggie a call. Check she's okay.
Yeah, public phone boxes aren't hard to find. So you slip into a phone box, and with Simon waiting carefully outside, because I doubt the two of you would fit in the phone box together, you place a call to the Ballinger residence. Maggie, you hear the phone ring.
Yeah. I probably wouldn't answer it.
No,
I don't know. I don't
probably
think I'm
not.
used to answering it.
Probably not, but David straight away does. He's
Yeah.
fairly quick. Ballinger residence. You hear
Oh.
the voice say,
Hello, it's Professor Courtenay here.
yes, sir.
Is Miss Bellinger available?
You'd be good enough to wait just a moment. I'll see if she's available.
Thank you.
You see David enter the sitting room, Maggie, and he says, there's a Professor Courtenay on the phone for you.
Oh. No, that's a nice surprise. I will take it.
Very well. He walks back. He doesn't walk you to the phone, but he kind of walks with you long enough that if you needed to ask or tell him anything, you'd be able to. And then once you get to the phone, he goes elsewhere.
Okay. Hello, Richard?
Maggie, afraid I've had a terrible thought. What with all these comings and goings and happenings, I'm afraid the one thing in common with all these murders and fires and all the rest of it seems to be me. Whoever these people are seem to be targeting people I know, places I've been. I was rather concerned about you. You haven't seen anything suspicious, have you?
I don't think that I have.
No. Well, you should be careful.
You don't think that myself and Aunt Edith would be in danger, do you?
Well, I wouldn't have thought my students were in danger either, but if you'd have asked me and I'd have told you, I'd have been wrong.
Oh, well, yes. Now that you pointed out, I am quite worried.
Yes. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to concern you, but I think it's only fair to warn you. I would suggest that we maybe find a safer place for you before we leave soon. Does that seem sensible? I mean, Simon can look after us, keep guard.
Well, I would hate to leave Aunt Edith so soon. I did plan on seeing her for a couple more days. You think that she would be safer without me here?
I do. Maybe she could go somewhere else. Did you mention you had somewhere else in England, or I don't recall.
No. I only have my Aunt Edith here. There are, if safety is in numbers, there are quite a few other people here right now.
Yes. I think she'd be safe. I'm sure the whole thing will be fine as soon as I've left London. But I'm just concerned. You could meet us later. I'm visiting Lady Elizabeth later on this afternoon. But perhaps this afternoon afterwards we could arrange something.
Oh, yes. That might be the perfect time to sort this all out.
Yes.
Would you like to go there together? We could meet here and then head there.
Yes, I don't know why Lady Elizabeth didn't invite you, but yes, of course you should. Of course, yes, you should come with me.
It would seem safer that way.
Yes, and then Simon can look after us until at least we leave this place.
Yes, he can.
If we're all happy with that, then we can move a clock forward a bit towards tea time. So, Mr. Fraser, the Kensington residence has been under, quite frankly, a deluge of rain today. The gardens are a sopping mess at this point. This can't be bothered to be able to make any work of it, and so you've been stuck inside, but you've been busily preparing for the journey ahead in the next few days. One thing did not get wet would have been the morning paper. The Telegraph has a quite a rather stunning story. It catches your eye before it's placed anywhere near her ladyship. But given your previous conversation, it seems timely.
That is one of the things that would be brought to her ladyship with her breakfast, the daily paper. But if there's anything that catches my eye, and there's a particular note in there.
Yeah, so not so much in particular. I'm assuming you're having been a member of staff for long, you can probably slow walk breakfast just a bit to be able to kind of read in a bit of what's been written on it. So it does seem that there has been a solicitor appointed on this Alexander's End. A solicitor named by the last name of Finlay. And
Mr. Finlay. Is this a London solicitor?
It is. It's actually, technically speaking, I suppose he would be addressed by as First Viscount Finlay.
Oh. Okay.
So he has taken the case, as it were. So that would probably pique your interest. It's about all you get, other than you know that it's now leaked to the papers and it is in the hands of a solicitor who has title.
Are there details in the story that I can see about exactly what the nature of the case is? Is it clear that it is a man who is claiming in some way that he is an heir of Maplebrook and the estate?
It is clear that is the claim that is being made, and the Telegraph uses words like well documented, properly prepared case. So the read that the paper seems to be getting on it is that there are certain ducks and they have been placed in rows.
I'm thinking as well that it might not be a bad idea to place a quick telephone call to Maplebrook to ensure that Her Ladyship, the Dowager Lady Northbrook, does not accidentally happen to glance at that particular newspaper or any others that might be carrying this story.
Yeah, I would say if you had time and you wanted to ring Mr. Meadows, you would be able to get a hold of him and put that information in his hand.
That's good, because that would be the last thing we'd need. I'll bring Lady Elizabeth's breakfast to her, and I'll make sure that the newspaper is kind of positioned fairly prominently on the tray, so that she sees what there is to see.
Lady Elizabeth, Miss Fraser enters with your morning breakfast.
Good morning, Fraser.
Good morning, Your Ladyship. I have your breakfast here for you, and the telegraph.
Thank you. Is everything all right, Fraser? You look like you've seen a ghost.
There is a piece in the newspaper this morning which might be of particular interest to you, Your Ladyship. Page 4.
Oh dear.
Just to set your mind at rest before you read it, I have already been in touch with Mr. Brewster up at me.
Oh dear. Yes, thank you for calling to ensure Mother doesn't see this.
Of course. Is this Viscount Finlay known to you, Your Ladyship?
Is he?
He's known as a doctor and a politician who also is a solicitor.
He's a solicitor, that's all I know.
Very well. I'll attempt to see if I can find any more information about him, about what type of gentleman he is.
Yes, well...
It strikes me that anyone wishing to take on such a case, if you don't mind me saying so, Your Ladyship, is perhaps somewhat less than a gentleman.
Though I don't quite understand what he hopes to gain from this, because even if Alexander is the oldest son, he's still a bastard. He was an unrecognized bastard even. There's no way he can claim the title.
Well, I would imagine that this Viscount Finlay is probably looking for fame and recognition. Yeah, perhaps he believes he does have some sort of a case that he can win, although I think that hardly likely.
Yes, or he's just looking to get names in the papers. I wonder if he's got a grudge against Raymond or Father.
Indeed, perhaps that might be the case, Your Ladyship. Unfortunately, these types of individuals do exist in the world.
Well, this is not the way I wanted to start my morning.
No, Your Ladyship.
Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
My pleasure, Your Ladyship. Well, I use the word pleasure. My duty, Your Ladyship.
Yes, I understand. See what you can find, Fraser, and let me know anything you find out.
I shall indeed, Your Ladyship, and I will perhaps also purchase one of the tabloid newspapers as well, and see what in what manner they are reporting this, if indeed they are at all.
Yes, I'm sure they are. You know how they do love a good scandal.
Indeed, Your Ladyship.
Very well, Fraser. You may go about your duties. I'm going to do some reading this morning before the American invasion this afternoon.
Quite so, Your Ladyship. Yes. It seems that there's a deluge of rain from the heavens and Americans from the streets.
I think I prefer the former, but here we are. All right. Thank you, Fraser. That'll be all.
Very well, Your Ladyship. And if there's anything else, of course, just ring.
Of course.
All right. So I suppose then, really, a bit brief, but Miss Fraser, you're planning some specific moves socially to find out what's going on.
Primarily, I'm wanting to find out from whatever means at my disposal a little bit more about this Viscount Finlay, about what sort of a man he is, what other cases his solicitor's firm may have taken on, and how successful they've been. After
a few hours of, say, maybe playing telephone or whatnot, or checking in with people that you know in the area who are maybe a little bit more connected. This is not a solicitor that's not known for his attempt to climb ladders, as it were. He's taken on some really concerning cases over the past decade or so, and he's managed to ball them up and use them to gain some fair prominence in certain legal circles. Now, these circles vary, of course, by opinion, but you get a read that he is a fairly successful lawyer.
Do I get a read that he is does he have scruples, or is the manner in which he's gained his success by taking on cases that will draw attention to him? Is he kind of flamboyant and does he seem to stand up for the little man, or does he seem to take cases that will make a name for himself?
He is the type of solicitor who has, I guess, built some of his early works. Some of his early cases were trade union cases, and he did a lot of work in and around New Haven, and then eventually came down towards the London area when the cases got to be a little bit more lucrative, or a little bit more socially lucrative, so to speak. Maybe build himself as an everyman at the beginning, but it's clear now that he's picked a path, and that path is about potentially becoming something more than he is.
Okay, it does seem to Fraser that he's kind of trying to gauge what this man thinks he or believes he's going to achieve by taking on this case, because it would seem that, as Lady Elizabeth has said, that he has nothing really to gain other than the discrediting a family, dragging them through the dirt, as it were, in public, rather than any possibility of his client, he and his client, actually winning the case. Because even if the connection is proved, then it doesn't necessarily mean that he'll get anything, because that would be entirely between the family and the man.
Your leads probably lead you more towards that he's looking to become something more than he is, maybe a privy councillor or something like that. And what he's looking for is the social clout to do so. Mm-hmm. It's not that he lacks the legal experience nor the legal acumen. It's that he himself needs a bit more social clout to get his name in certain circles. And you think potentially that his aim is to prove that maybe the former Earl of Northbrook was not everything he said he was. And so you believe it's likely that this arrow comes from someone else's quiver, that he's simply acting instead of someone who wants to act in this place.
When this is supposed to have taken place, when this man was born, how that coincides with his lordship's marriage to Lady Helen, whether or not it is possible, in fact, that this man is the child of a woman who was married, perhaps in secret, to his lordship, potentially even prior to his actual, his let's call it real marriage to Lady Helen. Because if that were the case, then perhaps he would have a claim to the estate.
And the thing that you would lack in that regard is the papers that likely this solicitor has.
Yeah.
If he supposedly has looked and seen at these documents, because you know that no one's going to bring a case unless they actually see the evidence. And so it must be that he either believes the evidence or he believes he can make the evidence believable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also kind of, or Fraser's also kind of bearing strongly in mind that these documents that were stolen from Maplebrook and what might have been contained in them that could be pertinent to the case, which is troubling him somewhat. But he'd also want to try and get in touch with William, and perhaps any other of the servants at Maplebrook who would have been there longer than him, and potentially, if they weren't actually present at the time, would maybe have some knowledge of this particular woman. That because Fraser's quite aware that his lordship had more than one affair throughout the course of his marriage and throughout the course of his life, indeed. So if he can maybe try and narrow down who this woman might have been, then he might be able to get some sort of sense of whether or not it is likely that this Alexander chap does have a genuine claim to the title, and also how potentially it might connect up to the book. and to the the current events that are going on around us.
Okay. Well, you put your lines out there for William. You don't get in direct contact with him, but you know that the staff there will get a message to him when he's available. So maybe just a day or two on that information.
Okay.
But that
I think
said,
that's probably going to take me quite some time to do all that.
But that said, there is tea to get to. And as much as you've wrangled a bit of the day, the clock does seem to stand in defiance of all your desires.
Well, in that case, I will go and just see to the tea. I'll offer to deal with taking the tea to Lady Elizabeth in the study, or possibly in the morning room that afternoon, because obviously I've met the different individuals almost on a social sort of level that are involved in it, and so rather than have one of the other servants deal with it, I'll offer to bring in the tea and to lay it out for them, just as a sort of personal touch for them.
Wonderful. You are alerted soon thereafter that by Mr. Hughes that there is several people on the doorstep again for Lady Elizabeth.
Oh, Mr. Hughes, thank you. I'll take care of this. I'll see them in.
Are you quite sure?
Yes, no, that's not a problem at all. I'll see them into the parlour, and then I'll let her ladyship know, and then I'll take them through into the morning room.
Wonderful. Richard, Maggie, and Simon, you arrive properly on time for tea back at Kensington. It is still raining. It has eased up a bit from this morning at around 10, but the streets here are just slick with water.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Miss Ballinger, allow me to take your coats. Please do come in out of the rain.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, I'll take your umbrella as well, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd care to just wait in the parlour for a few moments, I'll let her ladyship know that you're here, and once she's ready, I'll see you through.
Okay.
He seems a little more cheery today, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
I'll pop through into. I'm presuming that Lady Elizabeth is in either the library or the morning room, perhaps, and I'll pop through and say, Your Ladyship, Mr. Courtenay, Mr. Griffith, and Miss Ballinger have arrived.
Ah, yes. So she came after all.
She did. Where would you like to seat them?
The sitting room will be fine, I suppose.
Very good, Your Ladyship.
I'll be right through, thank you, Fraser.
So I'll pop through and say, Gentlemen, Miss Ballinger, if you'd care to follow me, Lady Elizabeth will see you in the drawing room. She'll be along shortly. She's just attending to one or two other matters. I'll guide them through into the drawing room.
And so after matters are attended to, Lady Elizabeth joins the lot of you.
Can I offer you some tea, or we have coffee as well, if that's your preference?
Oh, tea would be fantastic, thank you.
Oh, I will take some coffee, yes.
Some coffee. And how do you take your coffee, Miss Ballinger?
Just black.
Mr. Fraser will expertly attend to your refreshment requirements. Cake?
Miss Fraser, you notice that the professor he looks a little concerned. Not when you offer the cake, but just in general. He's a little bit more sweaty than usual, probably.
I come walking in with my backup cane today, because my first one still needs repair after our trip. Welcome, everyone. Glad to see you could make it. Miss Ballinger, Professor, Mr. Griffith.
Lady Elizabeth, good to see you again.
Yes, hello, Lady Elizabeth. I hope you don't mind that Richard invited me along. It seemed that we had some matters to discuss and thought that this might be a good place to do so. Also, I have something that may be of interest to you, I think.
Of course. Always happy to entertain our American cousins. Please have a seat.
Oh, of course. Thank you.
What is it you would like to show me, Miss Ballinger?
Me and my Aunt Edith went to the library just the other day, and I'm not sure if you've heard, if it's in the papers at all, but we found a dead body there.
Oh my.
And it was quite disturbing. I've me and Richard and Mr. Griffith have gone to look at the library, but I'm not sure if I actually drew the body, and I didn't know if maybe you, with your broader knowledge, could maybe discern anything from it.
Well, I haven't seen that many dead bodies, but all right.
Well, it was quite strange because it was skinned.
And both of her eyebrows just go up. Strange company you keep, Miss Bellinger.
Well, I did not know this man, but it does turn out that he was a student of Richard's.
Just sort of turn my head slowly to look at Richard.
Yes, I'm afraid another one has befallen this fate. It seems that they may be following us, which was partly the reason I invited Miss Bellinger Maggie here to come here with me. Simon, do you have that note from my desk?
Yes, I do, Professor. Let's not put all our cards on the table right away. Let's go over what we have and figure out what we're doing.
Well, it's quite rude now for us to tell Lady Elizabeth that we have cards that we aren't showing her, don't you think?
Let me see your drawing, Miss Bellinger.
Yes, of course. And I will get out my notebook and show Lady Elizabeth, and as I hand it to her, I'll further explain. And he was seated at a desk with a copy of Arabian Nights, and the most disturbing part was I thought it was a piece of paper in front of him, and I picked it up and it was skin.
That must have been dreadful.
Yes, it said the skinless one will not be denied. Have you heard of this skinless one?
Okay, so the drawing she shows you is very graphic. The skin around the face and actually the whole of the head has been removed. What is both disturbing and rather attention-drawing is the fact that it seems to have been done with a well-trained hand. So there are no rips and tears of the muscle or the veins or the associated flesh underneath. It has been done in a way which medically is likely well talented. It's the focus that Miss Bellinger's hands have taken in this drawing, going to the eyes and showing that they are still snapped to attention, still staring out at the world.
Is this when I make a sand roll?
You bet.
Oh my. That is an 89 over 70.
Okay, so you lose a point of sanity.
Okay. Oh my. Seems you have quite skill as an artist, Miss Bellinger.
No, thank you.
Is there something I should be looking for in this image?
Not in particular. I just know that you have knowledge and experiences that I don't, and so I thought that any of it might mean something to you. The image quite stuck in my head, and I just felt the need to get it out on paper.
Yes, I can see that. And is it the skinless one shall not be denied? Is that what you said?
Yes, it said the skinless one will not be denied.
Does this strike any chords with me, Mike?
You could make an occult roll.
Okay.
You would have to impress me, but you'd have to make an occult roll.
That's a 4. 004.
In some of the texts that you had read before, you do remember hearing a reference to maybe it was a Middle Eastern practice, maybe it was a practice from India, that there were incantations which could be used to sever the body's connection to the host. And these incantations were sometimes done in praise to a being they referenced called the Skinless One. It's really obscure. There's not a lot of information that you have in your memory banks for it. You'd have to look either in your libraries to see if there is other information, or perhaps consult other tomes.
I don't know very much. This is very, very strange, very rare sort of occurrence. But yes, the skinless one, I believe, is some sort of Indian deity of some kind. And I remember reading in one of Father's books, actually, about this cult. They believed something along the lines of, if you could remove the skin, you could remove the soul from the body. It's very strange. Father wouldn't let me read more about it.
If I may.
You may.
This body that Miss Maggie found, and she reported to the librarians and constables came in, never made it back to Scotland Yard.
Really?
Yes.
Explain why it wasn't in the papers this morning, I suppose.
Yes.
Well, it says to me, then, that there must be someone fairly high up, or at least powerful involved, if you can keep something so completely quiet.
And additionally, when we went and investigated the professor's office, as he requested, a note was left on his desk, and I have it here. And I take out the note, carefully fold it up. It is also on skin, and it says that the professor's student was a naughty boy, which implies that the body found at the library was this professor's student. We have not confirmed any of this yet, but he has not been home.
At this point, you can see a shiver go down Richard's spine as he realises that the note that he picked up and read earlier was made of skin.
Well, this doesn't look promising now, does it, for your student, Professor? I'd rather not touch that, if you don't mind, Mr. Griffith.
That's fine, ma'am. I fold it back up and stick it back in my pocket.
It's a little difficult to fold up what with the hair follicles rubbing at your fingertips, but you managed to do so.
Gross.
I've handled worse.
Maggie is also quite taken aback by this, having had picked up a skin parchment herself.
I don't look flustered at all by doing this.
Professor, you said that you invited Miss Bellinger here along because you have some concerns for her safety?
Well, yes. We first saw these Turkish gentlemen at the Challenger lecture. Professor Smith's home has been burned down, along with most of him. And 2 of my students have now been murdered. It seems that whoever I talk to, wherever I go, trouble follows, death follows.
Well, that's very pleasant to hear, considering you're in my parlor.
Ma'am?
Yes, I quite see what you mean.
Yes, Mr. Griffith?
Do you remember what I mentioned back at Maplebrook?
There were multiple things. Which one are you referring to?
About people being interested in the item the professor was carrying, and also
yes.
your book. They may be pursuing you as well. Anyway, is there anything that you know of about people pursuing this book? Or around Maplebrook or Kensington?
Well, we know there was a break-in at Maplebrook. And I have reason to potentially connect the book with what's going on. But I don't know of anyone following me or keeping an eye on the house. Fraser hasn't informed me of any such goings-on.
No, your ladyship, as far as I'm aware, there is nobody watching the house, but perhaps it would be prudent of me to take a little turn around the gardens, just to be on the safe side.
Yes, I think we're fairly safe here.
Lady Elizabeth, you are of a more visible character, so I doubt you are in as much danger as anyone else. But even so, I do believe we are being watched.
Yes, well, when you're in my position, you get used to being watched. papers following you everywhere, etc.
And it's entirely possible Miss Maggie is in danger.
Yes, that was quite the point.
Lady Elizabeth takes a very deep breath. Miss Bellinger,
Yes.
would you feel more safe were you to stay elsewhere? I understand your aunt's household may not be the safest place for you.
Well, with Richard's concern for me, yes, I do think it would be good if I stayed somewhere else, not only for my safety, but I would also be concerned for my aunt's safety if something were to happen to me or if someone were to be after me while I was at her house.
Very well. We're leaving the day after tomorrow as it is, so you shall stay here. Mr. Fraser, please pass along instructions to have a room made up for Miss Bellinger.
Of course, Your Ladyship.
Why, thank you. I do appreciate your hospitality. I don't know anyone else here.
Yes, we can't have you staying on your own, and of course you can't stay with the Professor and Mr. Griffith here, so it's the only logical decision. And she smiles slightly, painfully.
I'll make up a room on the third floor for Miss Bellinger.
Ah, yes, the blue room.
Indeed, Your Ladyship. Mr. Fraser knows very well that that room is quite some distance from her Ladyship's own room.
Wonderful. Then I suppose that's as good a time to any to call it. And so, just a day or so out from our first official train ride, we thank you so much for listening. We thank our patron backers for their support. And next session, we'll see you on the train.